in, regardless of the lifestyle or your character, that all of you have some Jesus in you. Oh, man, y'all not going to let me teach today. And y'all talk back to me. Don't fall asleep on me. But I understand that a lot of times we can throw ourselves away because we don't understand the values that God has already placed in us. A lot of times we underestimate who we are. We downgrade who we are based on what we do and not because of whose we are. But we have to understand this morning that if we're going to be productive in life and this world, that we have to draw from the Jesus in us. And I don't know if any of y'all ever been sick, but sometimes when you've been down and out, and when your friends turn their backs on you, when family didn't encourage you, sometimes you had to look within and encourage yourself. There was a TV show about a heavy man who decided to change his life. This man was not just big, but as the young people say, he was big. 1,000 pounds. And all he did was just lie in bed, because that's all he knew to do. He would just lay in bed all day waiting to die. He was so bad off that he could not visit the doctor, but the doctor had to visit him. And on one visit, the doctor just shrugged his shoulders and told the man that there's nothing else for me to do for you. He said, well, if you're just going to lie here and do nothing, you are going to die. He said, I can guarantee you that, but instead of lying there and waiting for death, at least die doing something. That struck a chord with the man. He decided from that point that he would do something, and the television show fast forwarded to a year later and showed that the man was 250 pounds lighter and walking around. He decided at that point that he did not want to go out like that. He chose not to settle. But some of us have settled, although we have the power to get up and do something. Through the power of God that worketh on the inside of us. It's too many folk always making excuses and blaming other people when you need to draw from the Jesus in you. Well, the pastor didn't come pray for me. Well, the deacons didn't pray for me. The doctor gave me the wrong medicine. The first step to your healing is not coming from without, but it's coming from within. Yeah, it's easy to make excuses why I'm not moving up the corporate ladder. It's easy to make excuses and blame somebody why I haven't received my healing. It's easy to make excuses as to why my marriage is failing. But the first place you need to start is inside. Sent out a text this morning that you can change churches. You can change jobs. You can change spouses. But if you don't change your mind, you're going to take old problems to new places. Yeah, I'm going to find me another church. Well, if you don't change your mindset, the same problems you had at First Baptist, you're going to carry over yonder. It has to begin with the Jesus on the inside of you. And regardless of how low you feel this morning, you need to recognize that you have Jesus on the inside of you. Can I just teach this text for just a moment? I want to go back to verse 2. and talk about meaningful relationships. The text says that there was a certain, verse 2, centurion servant. He was the servant of this commander officer. And the text says that the servant was dear to him. The servant, not his mama, not his brother, but the servant was dear to his master. Watch the, y'all, stay awake. And the servant got sick. The text says that the servant, not the master, but the servant was so sick that he was ready to die. Anybody ever been in a place and you ain't got to say amen? And it don't have to be sickness. Sometimes you just get tired of going through hell all the time. So sometimes you just sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you may not say it out loud, but in your mind you'll say, Lord, if you take me now, I ain't going to be mad at you. This servant was sick and ready to die. Yes. Now, when we look at, I wanted to talk about the relationship between this servant and his master. But to adequately talk about the relationship between the servant and the master, I wanted to put it in perspective. Because the same man says in verse 8, I'm skipping around a little bit, but I'm going somewhere. He said that I have under me soldiers, not servants, but I have under me soldiers. And when I tell one to go, he goes. And when I tell another one to come, he comes. I'm not describing the relationship between me and my servant, but between me and my soldiers. So if you can have that relationship between you and your soldiers, what kind of relationship you think that was there between a master and his servant? Can I tell you what kind of relationship? See, in the military, I tell you to go. Don't move until I tell you to move. You come when I tell you to come. You do what I tell you to do. But when I have a servant, my servant should know every morning I like coffee. And I shouldn't have to tell you to go get my coffee. You know what I like. And when I get out of bed, my slippers need to be right next to my bed. When I go and sit down at the table, I shouldn't have to tell you to go fix me something to eat. The food ought to already be on the table. A servant knows his master. And the servant doesn't have to wait on the master to do something, but he already knows what the master requires of him. And Pastor, why are you teaching it to us like this? Because we serve a master. And a lot of times we don't receive our blessings because we sit around waiting for him to tell us what to do. When if he's really your master, you ought to already know what's required of you. Oh, I'm trying to help somebody today. Oh, I'm trying to teach a little bit today if I can. I look good. I'm trying not to sweat. I mean, that's what somebody told me. Oh, Pastor, you look good in that shirt today. Thank you, ZZ. Amen. Ain't nobody else told me. Thank you, ZZ. Listen, now, the servant was dear to him. Listen, you can get servants anywhere. I saw something on Facebook, and I hope I don't mess it up, is, when we were brought from Africa, they didn't bring slaves from Africa. They brought scientists, doctors, lawyers, nurses, inventors. But they brought us over here and made us slaves. Hello, somebody. Now, if we look at this text, that here the servant was dear to his master. And the reason I believe in looking at this text that he was dear to his master is because somewhere along the way he became more than just a servant. The question I have for you this morning, are you more than just your title? A lot of us get satisfied with just operating in our titles. Pastor, I'm coming, I'm going to preach, I'm going to visit you at the hospital, I'm going to bury you, I'm going to do all of those pastoral things, but don't ask for no more than that. It's not in my job description. We lose our blessing when we limit ourselves based on our title. It's a true story. At the last job I had at the personnel board, I had a title, but then somewhere along the way I started doing like I'm doing out here. I set up some snacks and I sold them for what they cost. And it was so meaningful to the people who used it, they called it Vending Mart. And it was my responsibility to keep it replenished. Was not in my job description. But from the head man on down, every time they needed a snack, you can go to Vending Mart and get a soda for 35, 45 cents. You can go and get a bag of chips for 50 cents. You could go get all of these things for what they cost. And what did that have to do with anything? See, I was operating in a meaningful way that was not in my job description. Well, why is that important? It's important to know that if I ever did something in my job they didn't like, if they got rid of me, they got rid of Vending Mart. Somebody ain't got it yet. See, this centurion realized that if his servant died, he lost more than just a servant. And I don't know specifics about this relationship, but the Bible says that this servant was dear to him. In other words, I believe he went beyond his title as a servant. And if we're going to be blessed in the kingdom of God, we have to operate beyond our title. If you just going to be a musician, it ain't going to be no anointing in the choir. Hello, somebody. If you just going to be a usher, then you're not going to be an anointing at the door. And I wonder how many church members we have just operating in their titles. I'm a church member. What do church members do? We come to church. Because it looks good. Yeah, it looks good for y'all to be sitting on the front row of the church with your Bible. It looks good. Operating in your title. But if you want to be blessed, start operating beyond your titles. Husbands, start operating beyond your title. Wives, start operating beyond your title and be what your man needs you to be. Can I preach this like I feel it? Wives, if you are a wife, you can be saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost at church. But at home when the lights I forgot we're not having children's church today. Got to straighten it up. But sometimes you got to go beyond your title to become dear to your husband. But a lot of times we like to just operate, no, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to give, this is what I'm going to say. But we got to learn to move beyond a title and be in favor with your master. And it reminds me of the speech that King gave about his funeral. When I die, and I'm speaking about me too, I want y'all to say more than I was the pastor of First Missionary Baptist Church. I want y'all to say more than I preach good sermons, I had a good job, I took care of my family. I want y'all to reminisce about the time when I pick up folks along the roads, that I tried to help somebody along the way. That's going beyond your title. Now, if you're just satisfied with just doing what's in your title, then you also have to be satisfied with the results from your title. Watch this now. Because the servant was dear to his master, it ignited a response from his master. When you and God have a relationship and you are dear to God, when God sees you in need, he's going to respond accordingly.
Amen.
Because there's a greater relationship than just servant and master. Now, when this servant found himself sick, the servant heard about Jesus and sent unto Jesus elders of the Jews to tell Jesus to come and heal his servant. Now, what kind of master has this much concern for his servant? One that has a servant that is dear to him. When you have somebody that's dear to you and they find themselves in a crisis, you're going to get out of your normal routine. Hello, somebody. If you are stranded along the road and I'm at home with my PJs on with my feet up, and you call me and say, Pastor, I'm stranded, I need a lift from the side of the highway. If I tell you I can't do it, I'm too busy. That must mean you ain't dear to me. I'm just being real. But somebody that's dear to me, before I can even find out where you are, I'm putting on my shoes, putting on my coat. Just tell me where you are, and I'm on my way. This servant was dear to his master. How do you become dear to your master to form a relationship that ignites response? You have to be obedient. If this servant was always disobedient, the master would have just said, let him die. If this servant was not always looking out for his master, he would have said, let him die. And can I say this to you, and I hope you get it like I mean it. Sometimes you may not like your role, but you need to still respect your responsibilities. Oh my God. You may not be pastor, but you ought to still respect the man of God. You may not be CEO, but you ought to still respect those that are in authority on your job. So, develop meaningful relationships. Communicate. Love one another. We don't have to be nasty when we talk. I'm saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost. You ain't got to scream and cuss at me to get me to do nothing. Matter of fact, the quickest way for me to not do something is yell at me and tell me I got to do it. Listen, this servant had a special relationship with the master. Now, let me talk about the master. But can I tell you that in this text, there's also a special relationship that flowed the other way. When the centurion sent the elder Jews to Jesus, they told him, no, I'm trying to find this particular text. All right, verse 4 and 5. It says, and when they came to Jesus, they besought him instantly, saying that he was what? He was worthy for whom he should do this. They're talking about the centurion. They're not talking about the servant. They're talking about the centurion, this unsaved man. This man that did not know Jesus as their Savior, this centurion. Look what he said in verse 5. Talking about the centurion. Verse 5 said, for he loveth our nation. And look what he said, and he hath built us a synagogue. They're talking about the master, the centurion, to Jesus and saying that our master is worthy for you to do what he's asking you to do. Why? Because he first loved us. Anybody this morning glad that Jesus loves you? That your master loves you? Anybody glad to know that his love never fails? Anybody glad to know that the love of Jesus is what's keeping you day by day? Because if he had not loved you, he wouldn't have died on Calvary's cross. He said, our master loves us. Well, how do you know that your master loves you? He said, because he's built us a synagogue, a place of worship. You know that your master loves you. And even when you can't see the love, you ought to be able to open up your eyes. When you can't feel the love, you ought to be able to open up your eyes and see the love of Jesus. But what are you trying to say? Even when you can't feel his love, you ought to be able to look around and see all the good things that God is doing. I wasn't speaking to the wrong house. I don't know about you, but every time I turn around, he keeps on blessing me. I serve an awesome God. Anybody serve an awesome God that can see the love of Jesus? When I woke up this morning, I saw that he kept a roof over me. He kept a roof over my head. When I sat down at the breakfast table, I had food in the refrigerator. I went in my closet and I was able to put shoes on my feet. Oh, I feel the love of God. Anybody feel the love of God in this place? When you was on your deathbed, he kept you. When you felt like giving up, his love kept you. When you felt like throwing in the towel, his love kept. Anybody can tell God, thank you for loving me. Well, how much did he love you? He loved you so greatly that he laid down his very life. Can I tell you why he laid it down? Because we wasn't fit to live. We unworthy. We won't do right. We won't love folks right. But he loved us enough. He sent his son Jesus to die on Calvary's cross. And I don't know about you, but I'm glad about it. This master, they said, Jesus, come because he may not be a Jew, but he loves us. It's good to be loved. It's good to feel love. Amen. Amen. Real love, you ought to be able to feel it. Right? Oh, y'all real tired. Y'all tired already. I'm trying to close now and not give you part B tomorrow. Maybe not tomorrow, next week. But unworthy. But he loved me. Unworthy. But he loved me. Not fit for nothing I'm asking for. But he loved me. Yes. Should have been dead a long time ago. But he loved me. Why does he love you? Because he sees the Jesus in you. He loves you because he's the type of God that is able to look beyond your faults. See, the reason we can't feel his love is because we feel our greatness. And the greater we feel about ourselves, the less we can feel the love of Jesus. Oh, somebody should have shouted about that. The more we pat ourselves on the back, the less humble we get before the throne of grace. And we have to know today that because he loved us, he gave us everything he had to save us. Unworthy, full of sin. He did that for us to restore a meaningful relationship. And I ask this question today. Do you have a meaningful relationship with God? This is nothing to play with. We all have relationships. Oh yeah, that's my friend. When the last time you talked to him? Or we don't talk like we should. But what kind of relationship do you have? Well, it's just known that we real close. Who knows it? I'm talking about a meaningful relationship. Watch this now. Can I tell you what a meaningful relationship does? When you have a meaningful relationship with God, he can just see you suffering and you ain't got to ask for nothing. All this centurion did was saw this servant suffering and heard about Christ. And he said, I'm going to do it for him. That's what a meaningful relationship does. When you have a meaning relationship with somebody, they can't walk by you suffering and not stop and ask you what's wrong. When you have a meaningful relationship with somebody, they can't see you in need and act like they didn't see anything. I'm talking about a meaningful relationship. And if you have a boo and he doesn't provide for you, he will allow you to suffer. It ain't meaningful. That's right. Amen. A meaningful relationship ignites response. When I see you suffering, even if I got to do some things I ain't never done before, because we have a meaningful relationship. Listen, you may be saved and don't even have a meaningful relationship with Christ. Ask God to fill you with his spirit. Because we go through the motions of coming to church and don't have a meaningful relationship. Well, how do you know? Because you will go nowhere beyond your job title. Let's see, today I'm supposed to close. I ain't gonna do nothing else but close. Preachers, today I'm on to do the responsive reading. The person here that's supposed to do the call to worship ain't here, but now I'm just on for responsive reading. Oh, I'm stepping on toes now. Y'all stop saying amen. Ain't nobody standing at the door, but it ain't my Sunday to usher. Oh, y'all don't like this part, huh? We were shouting 10 minutes ago. I'm trying to help you establish a meaningful relationship. You go to work tomorrow and your boss tells you to have it done by Friday, do it Thursday. Well, no, they just told me I'm supposed to do A, B, and C. Then when it's time to get rid of you, your tears don't mean nothing because there's not a meaningful relationship. That's what's God. God is not calling us to religion. He's calling us to relationship. Religion is coming to church every Sunday, but leaving the same way we came. When you're in a relationship, it'll change you for the better. And I pray this prayer today, that if you're in this building and you don't have a meaningful relationship with God, don't try to establish one with nobody else before you first establish it with God. And if you don't have a relationship at all, we invite you to come and accept Christ as your Lord and your Savior. It needs to be meaningful. That God, I've tried it my way. It's not working. I prayed and I cried. I prayed and I cried. I'm suffering. But God said, I don't see anything that's meaningful. Give him yourself. Give him all of you.